Emma had always believed in love, the kind that stories were written about, the kind that promised forever. From the moment she met Daniel, she thought she had found her happily ever after. He was charming, successful, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that could make any woman feel safe. Their marriage, at least from the outside, seemed picture-perfect. But perfect was just an illusion. It began with the little things: missed phone calls, late nights at the office, the scent of perfume on his shirts that didn't belong to her. Emma tried to ignore it, brushing off the gut-wrenching feeling that gnawed at her every time he came home late with another excuse. Love required trust, she told herself. And she trusted Daniel, didn't she? Yet, doubt was a stubborn shadow, lurking in the corners of her mind, whispering when she lay awake at night, staring at the empty side of the bed where her husband should have been. One evening, as she scrolled through her phone, a notification appeared on their shared home security app. It was a motion alert from the camera in their living room. A strange feeling settled in her stomach as she tapped to view the footage. The video loaded, revealing the empty living room, dimly lit by the soft glow of the lamp Daniel had always forgotten to turn off. The timestamp read 10:32 p.m., just 30 minutes earlier. Then, the front door opened. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she saw Daniel step inside, but he wasn't alone. A woman, draped in an elegant red dress, followed him. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears as she watched Daniel lean in, his lips brushing against the woman's cheek before leading her further into their home. Her home. A nauseating chill spread through her body. She wanted to scream, to break something, but all she could do was sit frozen in shock, her fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. The footage ended, leaving Emma with the unbearable weight of confirmation. Her worst fears had come true. But she wasn't the type to break down and cry. Not yet. No, she needed more. She needed to know the full extent of his betrayal. And if Daniel had secrets, she would uncover every single one of them. Determined, Emma started searching. It began with his phone, always guarded, always face down, always locked with a password she wasn't supposed to know. But she did. When Daniel was asleep, she unlocked his phone and scrolled through his messages. At first, nothing seemed out of place, until she found the hidden folder. It was buried under an app disguised as a banking service. But it wasn't for money. Inside, she found pictures, selfies of Daniel with the mystery woman, texts filled with words of affection that had once been hers. But the worst was a message from her. "I miss you already. When will she be out of town again?" Emma's breath hitched. He was planning for more. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a double life. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled further. Transactions, hotel stays, expensive dinners, jewelry she had never received. Rage boiled beneath her skin, hot and unrelenting. But then, she found something else. Something that didn't fit. A document. A name. A bank account that wasn't theirs. It wasn't just an affair. It was something much worse. Emma's heart pounded as realization struck. She wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband. She was married to a liar, a man with secrets buried deeper than she could have ever imagined. And she was about to dig them all up. Emma sat frozen, her mind spiraling with the weight of what she had uncovered. The affair had been expected, dreaded, but not shocking. But the hidden account, the transactions, the unknown name, that was something far more sinister. She needed answers. The name on the document, Clara Hensley, meant nothing to her. It wasn't the woman from the video. It wasn't anyone she had ever heard Daniel mention. But why was he sending money to her? And why was he hiding it? Emma's hands shook as she copied down the details. A hidden bank account. Frequent wire transfers. Large amounts of money leaving their savings without her knowledge. The realization was suffocating. This wasn't just about cheating. Daniel was hiding something dangerous. The next morning, Emma played her part. She didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, she forced a smile, kissed his cheek, and pretended everything was normal. Daniel, ever the actor, smiled back, murmuring something about a late-night meeting at work. He had no idea she already knew where he had been. She waited until he left for the office before making her move. With the documents in hand, she drove to the nearest bank listed on the transactions. She hesitated outside, her heart hammering in her chest. Would they even tell her anything? Inside, a polite but disinterested banker glanced over the account details she had scribbled down. "I'm sorry, but I can't disclose any information on an account that isn't in your name." Emma expected that. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Listen, my husband, Daniel Carter, has been making wire transfers to this account. I just need to confirm if the recipient, Clara Hensley, is a real person. Please. It's important." The banker hesitated, then sighed. He glanced around before typing something into his computer. "Look, I can't give you details, but I can confirm that Clara Hensley is a listed account holder." Emma's stomach tightened. "And the address associated with the account? Is it local?" The banker hesitated again. "I really shouldn't be. Please." Her voice cracked. "I need to know." A long pause. Then, in a whisper, he said, "Yes. It's here in the city." Emma gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. "Thank you." She left before he could say anything else. Now she had a name and a location. Now, she could find out the truth. That evening, she followed Daniel. Her heart pounded as she trailed his car through the city, every turn confirming what she feared. He wasn't going to the office. He wasn't meeting a client. He was driving to a house, a modest, unfamiliar home in the suburbs. Emma parked a few houses down, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She watched as Daniel got out, knocked on the door, and then Clara Hensley appeared. But when she saw Clara, really saw her, Emma's breath caught in her throat. Clara wasn't just some woman. She was holding a child. A little girl, no older than 5. A child that looked exactly like Daniel. The world around Emma seemed to collapse. Daniel wasn't just cheating. He had another family. Emma's mind reeled as she sat frozen in her car, watching the scene unfold before her. Daniel smiled, as he kissed the little girl's forehead, then wrapped an arm around Clara Hensley, leading them both inside. He looked comfortable. At home. As if he had done this 100 times before. Emma's fingers dug into the leather of the steering wheel, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Her husband had a child. Another life. Another woman. A nauseating wave of betrayal washed over her. She had braced herself for an affair. For another woman. But a daughter? How long had this been going on? How many nights had he come home to her after kissing them goodnight? How many times had he looked into her eyes and told her he loved her, knowing he was hiding an entire family? Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not until she had every answer. And she was going to get them. Emma didn't remember driving home. Everything was a blur, a chaotic storm of emotions she couldn't control. But when she stepped into her house, something inside her snapped into place. She would no longer be the woman left in the dark. She spent the next few hours preparing. When Daniel came home that night, she was waiting. Sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of wine in front of her, his phone beside it. Unlocked. He froze in the doorway. "Hey, babe," he said cautiously, eyeing the phone. "What's going on?" Emma swirled the wine in her glass, lifting her eyes to him. "Long night at the office." Daniel hesitated. "Yeah. Back-to-back meetings." "I." "Cut the lies, Daniel." Her voice was eerily calm, but inside, she was a storm. "Tell me about Clara Hensley." His face drained of color. His lips parted, but no words came out. "Or should I be more specific?" she continued, tilting her head. "Tell me about your daughter." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence that stretched between them like a canyon. Then, his mask cracked. "Emma, let me explain." "Explain." She let out a hollow laugh. "Explain how you've been living 2 lives? How you've been lying to my face every single day." Daniel stepped forward, reaching for her, but she recoiled. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how." Emma slammed her glass down, the sound echoing through the kitchen. You didn't know how? You didn't know how to tell your wife you had a child? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I made a mistake. A mistake. Emma's voice shook with rage. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is missing a dinner date. You had a whole child, Daniel. He flinched but didn't deny it. And that was when Emma realized he never planned to tell her. How long? She whispered. Daniel hesitated. How long? A long pause. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost a whisper, he said, 6 years. Emma's heart stopped. She had been married to him for 7. The room tilted. The walls felt like they were closing in. The entire time she had been his wife, he had been hiding them. A sob clawed its way up her throat, but she swallowed it down. She would not break. Not yet. She doesn't know about me, does she? Emma's voice was hollow. Daniel looked away. That was all the answer she needed. Clara didn't know. She thought she was his only woman. His only family. Emma stared at the man she had loved for so many years and felt something inside her shatter. She had uncovered his lies. But the truth? The truth had destroyed her. Emma sat in silence, staring at the man she once thought she knew. Her husband. Her partner. The person she had built a life with. Now, he was nothing more than a stranger. 6 years. 6 years of deception. 6 years of splitting his life between 2 women, 2 homes, 2 realities. And she never saw it coming. Her fingers curled into fists beneath the table. So what was the plan, Daniel? She asked, her voice dangerously low. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I just supposed to live the rest of my life as your backup option? Daniel exhaled sharply, his hands gripping the edge of the counter. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She snapped, standing up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. Did you love her? Do you love her? His silence was deafening. Emma felt like she had been punched in the gut. You do, she whispered. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Daniel rubbed his face, his expression crumbling. It's not that simple, Emma. It is, she said coldly. You don't lie to someone for 6 years unless you're protecting something. Or someone. Daniel flinched. He didn't deny it. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her. She had spent years thinking they were happy, believing that every kiss, every shared laugh, every moment meant something. But the truth was clear now. She had been living in a lie. And Daniel had been the one holding the strings. Emma turned away, gripping the edge of the table as her breath shook. She couldn't stay here. Not with him. She had 2 choices. Walk away, disappear from his life, and leave him to his secrets. Burn it all to the ground. And right now, the second option felt far more satisfying. She turned back to him, her voice eerily calm. Does Clara know about me? Daniel swallowed. No. Of course she doesn't. Emma laughed bitterly. Because that would ruin the fantasy, wouldn't it? His silence confirmed it. Emma grabbed her phone. I think it's time she finds out. Daniel's eyes widened. Emma, don't. Why not? She tilted her head, her voice dripping with venom. She deserves the truth, doesn't she? Or do you only like telling the truth when it benefits you? He lunged for the phone, but she was quicker. You do this, and you ruin everything, Daniel warned, his voice shaking. Emma stared at him, her heart pounding. No, Daniel. You ruined everything. And with that, she made the call. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then a soft, unsuspecting voice answered. Hello. Emma's grip tightened. Clara? This is Emma Carter. I'm Daniel's wife. A pause. A long pause. Then, Clara whispered. What? Emma's heart hammered as she delivered the final blow. He's been lying to both of us. A sharp inhale. A choked sob. Then, the line went dead. Daniel stood frozen, his face ashen. What have you done? Emma met his gaze, unflinching. She had exposed his lies. Now, It was time to watch him pay the price. Daniel's face was pale, his jaw clenched so tightly that a vein pulsed in his temple. He didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. "You don't know what you've just done," he muttered, his voice hollow. Emma stared at him, unflinching. "I did what you should have done years ago." The room was thick with silence, broken only by the distant sound of a car driving down the street outside. It felt surreal, how the rest of the world continued moving as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Emma had shattered the illusion. Daniel's double life was over. And now, there was only one thing left to do. Leave. Before Emma could grab her bags, the doorbell rang. Daniel's eyes widened in horror. Emma's stomach twisted. It was her. Clara. Emma could hear the rapid, angry knocks now. The shaking breath on the other side of the door. She didn't hesitate. She yanked the door open. And there stood Clara Hensley, a woman who was supposed to be a stranger. But now, she was a victim of the same betrayal. Clara's face was streaked with tears, her body trembling. But when she locked eyes with Emma, her expression hardened. "You're really his wife," she whispered, her voice brittle. Emma nodded. "For 7 years. Clara's lips parted. "And I've been with him for 6. The weight of it hit Emma like a freight train. 6 years of stolen moments. 6 years of false promises. 6 years of living a lie. Emma took a shaky breath. "I didn't know. Not until today." Clara's hands curled into fists. Her voice broke, but she swallowed hard. "I have a daughter with him." Emma closed her eyes. She already knew. But hearing it from her? It made it so much worse. Daniel finally stepped forward, his voice desperate. "Clara, I was going to tell you." "Don't," Clara snapped, spinning toward him. "You don't get to talk. Not after this." Daniel's breath hitched, but Emma saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. Not fear of losing them. Fear of losing control. Clara's hands were trembling, but her voice was sharp. "Did you ever love me?" Daniel hesitated. Too long. And that was her answer. Clara let out a bitter laugh, wiping her tears. Then she turned to Emma. "I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm done. I won't let him lie to my daughter the way he lied to me." Emma nodded. She had already made her decision. Emma didn't need to say another word to Daniel. She just grabbed her bag, her keys, and stepped past him. As she walked out the door, Clara followed. Daniel's voice finally cracked. "Emma, please." She paused, just for a second. Just long enough to glance over her shoulder. She had spent years being his wife. Being the woman who forgave. Who ignored the doubts. Who believed in the lies. But that woman didn't exist anymore. "You don't get to beg now," she said softly. And with that, she walked away. She had exposed the lies. She had uncovered the truth. And yes, the truth had broken her. But now, she was finally free.